Looks like we're ready to go.
Yes, sir. We're ready to go.
All right, good evening, everyone. I now call to order the Tuesday, March 8, 2022 meeting of the City of Sugar Land Planning and Zoning Commission. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening to all those watching. It's good to see you. At this time, I'm going to call item 3A on our agenda, which is closed executive session as authorized by Chapter 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with Section 551.071, consultation with attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on pending or contemplated litigation or a settlement agreement regarding 16-DCV-233432 Benchmark Acquisitions LLC versus City of Sugar Land, and we will be advised by Meredith Reed, City Attorney. At this time, we're going to adjourn this meeting and convene an executive session.
My check. My check, 1, 2, 3.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you.
right, do we have everyone back in the chamber?
We're waiting on Chuck.
Okay, thank you. Hard to see from here.
Oh, you're fine.
You have a full house, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to reconvene the open meeting of the City of Sugar Land Planning and Zoning Commission, Tuesday, March 8, 2022 meeting. The time is approximately 6:56 p.m. Central. At this time, we will move on to item 4, public comment. I'm going to delegate this to Vice Commissioner Simeon to open and close the public comment, public hearing section of this meeting. Dan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Matt. At this time, we invite members of the public desiring to address City Council, Board, or Commission in person with regard to matters on the agenda. Madam Secretary, is there anybody signed up? Okay, then in that case, we'll close the public comment, public hearing section and move on.
Thank you, Dan. We'll move on to item 5A, consideration and action on the minutes of the February 24th, 2022 meeting. Commissioners, you've got the meeting minutes in your packets. Any comments?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
I've got a motion to approve by Commissioner Simeon, and I did not see who was the second.
That was Taylor.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Simeon and a second from Commissioner Landine. Any other discussion? All right, if you will please vote at this time. That passes unanimously among the members present. Thank you, Commissioners. Now we're going to go to item 6. We've got a public hearing, a couple of public hearings, and Vice Commissioner Simeon, I will ask you to open the public hearing, please, on item 6A, see if we have any comments, and either receive the comments or close it, and then we'll move to consideration and action.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite any persons that desire to be heard on the proposed change in the future land use map for Chapter 6 Land Use Plan of the Comprehensive Plan for the map area that includes portions of property known as Tract 2 in the MM Battle League Abstract Number 9, located to the northwest of the intersection of U.S. Highway 90A and Easton Avenue.
Do you want to go ahead, Ruth? Do you want to give your presentation?
Sure. Okay, there we go. Okay, so before you this evening, we have a city-initiated amendment to the future land use map, which is in Chapter 6, the land use plan of the comprehensive plan. This amendment is in accordance with the City Council approved settlement agreement regarding this Tract 2 area. The map changes for approximately 220 acres, and it is a change from light industrial category to suburban neighborhood. And this suburban neighborhood category does support zoning categories including R1 and R1Z, which you'll see the proposed rezoning for in just a minute. So just to kind of orient you, the property is located, this is 90A here to the south, and then we have the airport over here to the east. just to the west is the Chelsea Harbor subdivision, which is outside of the city's jurisdiction. And then you have the Track 2 area located here. It is located within the city limits, and it is across from the Easton Avenue connection here, which goes into Telfair, which you can see there. So this is the existing future land use map. Excuse me. As you can see, here is 90A, and this is the area that is designated as light industrial. And then the proposed map changes this area, which is adjacent to the area outside of the city limits, to the suburban neighborhood designation. There is a portion of the overall Track 2 property that will remain as light industrial. We posted notification in the newspaper and on the city's website about the public hearing. The online form was also provided to the public, and at this time we haven't received any inquiries and we're not aware of any opposition. So as mentioned, the map change is in accordance with the council authorized settlement agreement, and the amendment only applies to the future land use map. We're not proposing any changes to the rest of the land use plan. And so with that, staff supports a recommendation of approval to the mayor and city council for the proposed amendment to the future land use map. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ruth. And a bonus of caution, Dan, we probably should have heard that first. Why don't you go ahead and open the public hearing and see if there's any comment and close it. We can move on to discussion then.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on the proposed change in the future land use map for Chapter 6 Land Use Plan of the Comprehensive Plan for the map area that includes portions of the property known as Track 2 in the Battle League Abstract Number 9, located to the northwest of the intersection of US Highway 90A and Easton Avenue. Having none, we'll close the public hearing.
All right, we'll move on to consideration action. Commissioners, any questions for Ruth on this item?
I just have one. So you're saying that with this change across any of the land use plan, this won't have any other impact that would need to be reviewed to update anything else? It's
Correct.
just specific to this particular tract
Just
of
the map.
land.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll just ask, so these are zoned, just regular R1, R1Z. So just for the public's edification, the development process is,
So this is just the change to the future land use map. The zoning action will come next after you take action on the future land use map.
gotcha, sure.
So the property right now is zoned industrial. That's okay. No problem.
And then after that, the next time we see this will be preliminary and final plats, right?
Probably a general land plan first
General
and then
land-
plating.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay, just again, so we're clear, at this time, take up consideration and action on the recommendation for the proposed change in future land use map for Chapter 6 Land Use Plan and the Comprehensive Plan for the map area that includes portions of the property known as Track 2 of the Battle League Abstract Number 9, located in the northwest of the intersection of US Highway 90A and Easton Avenue. Any further discussion on this item? I'll make a motion recommending, I will make a motion that we recommend to the members of the city council approving the change in the future land use map from light industrial to suburban neighborhood for the western portion of the area known as Track 2 in alignment with the council approved settlement agreement. I heard a second.
Second.
Got a second. Any further discussion? You'll please vote at this time. That passes unanimously among the members present. Thank you very much, commissioners. We'll move on to item 6B, consideration an action on the recommendation for the proposed change in zoning for approximately 220 acres of land within property known as Tract 2, the AMM Battle League, abstract number 9, located in the northwest of the intersection of US Highway 98 and Easton Avenue to the City Council. We'll hear from Doug Schauberg on this. Doug, let's hear your presentation, and then we'll do the public hearing, and we'll move on to discussion.
Thank you, sir. Members of the commission. Overview for this, again, same area as the previous item that you covered. This is rezoning for about 220 acres in the area that is known as Tract 2, northwest of 98 and Easton Avenue. So this rezoning process, it's being carried out in accordance with the text and exhibits of the settlement agreement approved by council in earlier this year in 2022. The existing zoning is restricted industrial M1 for the entire 220 acres, as well as other areas in the Tract 2 site and in the nearby area. The agreement included legal descriptions for 2 specific residential zoning districts that are single family. One is the R1, the standard single family residential, which is our most typical residential, and then 120 acres for zero lot line single family residential, R1Z, also commonly known as patio home style zoning. So again, this is the aerial that Ruth showed you before, just looking at the tract. And I'm going to do a little bit, and here we go, just orienting for everybody and anybody watching also online. 90A, this is Easton Avenue in Telfair. This is the city-owned Central Farm Unit, former prison site. And then this is the Tract 2 area here. The portion that we're talking about is going to be up from the top of the creek and then along here, and then this area is planned for some M1 style development, as well as drainage and detention, both below this to the south and to the east, which is going to remain M1. So looking at the future land use map that you just recommended approval for, again, just looking at a close-up of that, it will mirror this area that has been proposed for suburban neighborhood, which again, as Ruth mentioned, is appropriate for both R1 and R1Z style. So, let me back up from that. Looking at the rezoning maps, I've split this into 2 just for clarity here. We have the R1 proposal, which is 100 acres, and it follows the north boundary of the creek to approximately midway on the tract. And then below that is the R1Z, which takes down to what will be abutting M1 that's going to be drainage in the area. As far as the development, part of the council-approved development agreement in this area that was just approved at the beginning of March, there will be drainage between uses of any residential homes of at least 160 feet, not less than that. So anything M1 property-wise, as far as developable, will be separated by at least 160-foot buffer. Those type of things will be looked at in more detail in a general land plan and platting for the tract. So for the public hearing, notified properties within 200 feet, notification in the city's newspaper and our website. We did have our online form available for comments. We haven't had any inquiries, and we're not aware of any opposition as far as the proposed rezonings. So consideration points, again, in accordance with the settlement agreement recently passed for the Tract 2 area. It's in compliance with the proposed future land use map that you just voted on, and then, which is pending council hearing and approval. And then the R1 and R1Z areas, these are definitely 2 different styles of residential products. They will be platted separately as far as that, and all future developments will be required to comply with both those zoning districts fully. All the regulations in the R1, all the regulations in R1Z, as any other development would from the development code. So we do recommend, we support a recommendation of approval from y'all to the mayor and city council for these rezonings, both for the 100 acres and the 120 acres as proposed. And we'd be happy to take any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Doug. Let me call on Vice Chairman Simeon, who I incorrectly referred to earlier as Vice Commissioner Simeon. I don't think that's legally accurate, but Vice Chairman Simeon, if you wouldn't mind opening and closing the public hearing on item 6B.
Absolutely. At this time, we'd like to receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on the proposed change in zoning for approximately 220 acres of land within the property known as Tract 2 in the MM Battle League Abstract 9. Number 9, located in the northwest intersection of US 90A and Easton Avenue. Do we have anybody who has signed up to speak? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Discuss any questions from any of the commission members for Doug?
Can you just go over that development process now?
Hearing none.
I believe,
Go ahead,
I believe we have one.
Just for
yes.
public, yeah, just for public knowledge.
So the development process, and I can back up just a bit to what the zoning will be. So for any development for the R1 or the R1Z area, then the steps once council has concluded their public hearings and approval for these two items would be going through what we call a general land plan, which is an overall plan for an area that covers the main circulation and covers the main land uses. We also look at buffering and staff reviews things during that process, studies traffic impact analysis for large-scale developments such as this, any remaining drainage questions or issues, and main utilities. So there are some things that have already set out in the development agreement approved by council, but there will be some more elements. And just for example, traffic impact analysis is one of those during that general land plan process. That comes before the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and recommendation, and then council is the approver then of the general land plan. That is basically the gateway to the applicant submitting preliminary and final plats through the commission for lot layouts, both for the residential zones tonight, as well as any M1 property that the property owner develops that's in the Tract 2 area. So those are the processes. The development process, finally taking that to a completion, would be the actual building permits for the residences, and again, all city codes. This is fully in the city, so not only the zoning, but all building codes will apply.
Doug, do we know at this time whether there'll be any interconnection between the two? Like you mentioned, the 160-foot buffer, will there be a bridge over that?
There's going to be some connectivity, and there'll still be some elements to finalize that'll be illustrated on general land plan.
Right, but I mean, just at this point, we know there'll be connectivity.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to recommend approval for the proposed make a motion to recommend approval to City Council for the proposed change in zoning for approximately 220 acres of land within property known as Tract 2 in the MM Battle League Abstract Number 9, located to the northwest of the intersection of US 90A and Easton Avenue, to the members of City Council in accordance with the council authorized settlement agreement for Tract 2 area.
We've got a motion for recommendation for approval for item 6B. Is there a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Any other discussion? Do a vote at this time. That passes unanimously. One of the members present. Thank you, Doug. Thank you very much, commissioners. We will move on to item 7, facts, findings, and recommendations. 7A, consideration of and action on a recommendation of the rezoning of 7.869 acres from Plan Development General Development Plan Ordinance number 1969 to Plan Development Final Development Plan Imperial Highway 6 District Commercial Tract H Reserve A and B to the City Council. Laura Waller. It's all yours.
Good evening. So we are back again with this proposed rezoning for an FDP. This is the Tract H, reserves A and B only. This is an area right there at Imperial Boulevard and Highway 6 in that corner between the two, as well as in front of that detention pond. So just a little overview to refresh you since the last meeting. This is just under 8 acres at Highway 6 and Imperial Boulevard. It is proposed to be 2 reserves, as well as a 25-foot access and utility easement that will extend north from Imperial Boulevard. Reserve A is for an approximately 48,000 square foot office building, and Reserve B is for future development of a similar office type building. The 25-foot access utility easement is to be built to that north boundary of Reserve A during Phase 1, and then continue north during Phase 2 for access to Reserve B and future access to Highway 6 and Crown Garden Boulevard. This rezoning is for office and limited retail uses, and it does align with the Imperial General Land Plan and the First Step General Development Plan. So here is the overall Tract H layout, as you saw last time. So Reserve A is down here, this first corner, with the access easement here, access utility easement, and then up to Reserve B, with a future access point here to be built during Phase 2, and then continued north for future final development plans as Johnson is ready to bring those forward. So this is the layout for these 2 specific reserves. So that includes the 48,000 square foot building here in the middle of Reserve A, as well as the utility easement up to this boundary. So this up to this boundary is going to be Phase 1, and then Phase 2 would be the rest of the access utility easement as well as Reserve B. The landscape plan here shows approximations of about what these would look like. That includes trees along all of the access easements and shrubbery around parking lots for screening. Of note here, there was a comment last time, a question from Commissioner Landine about the location of the buffering here. That was chosen to stay there due to the closer proximity of the parking rather than the further proximity to the Highway 6 paving. The pedestrian and bicycle circulation is shown here as well, including crosswalks to the building across the parking lots, 5-foot sidewalks along the access easement, and a 10-foot shared use trail along the border with Highway 6 that will eventually connect up to where Crown Garden Plaza FDP is. There are also some proposed elevations to give you approximations of building materials. This also includes approximate height and features for the Reserve A building. So that building is, this is approximately what it would look like. So about 58 feet tall with some similar building finishes and features, including those insets and special materials that are made for accenting architectural features. The site photographs also have not changed since it's been such a short period of time. These do include photos that look towards the intersection at Highway 6 and Imperial down here, across more where Reserve A would be, and then that is the airport on the far side of Highway 6. And then this is north towards the detention pond, and then Crown Garden over here on the right. The future land use plan does call this regional commercial services, which does fit with the proposed uses that are outlined in the FDP. So a recap of the public hearing that was held. There was one speaker present who was concerned about the view from residences across that detention pond, primarily concerned with buildings that would be over 1 story. Staff did put together this little map that kind of outlines what distances are. So the closest proximity is down here at this southern corner. That's about 701 feet. On the top side, there's about 703 feet. And then going directly across the middle of the pond is actually almost 1,000 feet. So these are significantly distanced. There is also buffering that will be along this access easement between the residences and the buildings. I've also highlighted here in green the distance if you took the public right-of-ways to get from the new access easement around the corner to the entrance to the neighborhood, and that is right at 2,500 feet. So these are significant distances. The proposed maximum height is 150 feet per the text. The elevations call for 58 feet for that first initial building. And the maximum height per the general development plan is 150 feet. Any buildings in this area would have to go through the FAA approval process just to confirm that they are below their standards. Those maps also include details for longitude and latitude to make sure that they're underneath their height guidelines on their maps. From what staff can tell, it's approximately 175, 177 maximum feet per FAA. However, the GDP is capped at 150, so any buildings would have to meet that 150 feet. Again, staff also clarified that this has been proposed for office and commercial since that general land plan was initially approved in 2007. That has not changed, and this is in line with that. It is the proposed is to be zoned for office and commercial since the general development plan that passed in 2012, and this is again the same uses, just narrowing it down even more for some site specifics. Commission also was concerned with the Highway 6 access. That does require TxDOT review and approval. Staff is comfortable moving forward with the rezoning as this is the access to Highway 6 is only required for phase 2, and all other comments about mitigation and for that TIA have been cleared. We're just simply awaiting the TxDOT approval to move forward with that. And since the time of the last meeting, staff did receive one general phone call simply asking what the public hearing was, what this development would look like, and is not aware of any opposition. So your final consideration points, the FDP is in alignment with the general land plan, the general development plan, and the future land use plan. There is a specific use list tailored to this development that limits commercial and services to accessory uses of the office building. And engineering staff has reviewed the TIA and has cleared all comments pending TxDOT approval. And the phase 1 access is from Imperial Boulevard, phase 2 to continue on to Highway 6 and then north further to Crown Garden Trail. The FDP also does include connection to the Imperial Greenbelt along that 10-foot shared use trail that borders Highway 6. Therefore, staff does support a recommendation of approval to the mayor and city council for this rezoning. And we're happy to answer any questions. We also have the applicant here too before you make action.
I have a question. You mentioned access to Highway 6 is phase 2. Is that both accesses, the one in the middle, the one on the north end?
So it would only be the one that borders Reserve B. So this portion right here is the only portion that we're waiting for TxDOT approval. It's for this right here.
And that will be built
during
at
phase 2.
Did I see one between Reserve A and Reserve B?
So there is a second future access connection that is potential options for future FDPs, but it would be further north. It's not part of this FDP.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, I have
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So Laura, a couple questions. First, there was a resident that happens to be a neighbor of mine about 6 doors down. Has there been more communication from them on this topic?
Not that we are aware of.
Okay.
The phone call was from a member of the HOA board who just wanted to reach out and ask exactly what it was that was happening and where it was going to be located.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then I had some questions just on Exhibit B3 on the uses. Can you help me understand exactly what when you say accessory uses of an office building, what does that actually mean in layman's terms?
So accessory uses means it's not the main use of the building. So the main use will still be offices. Accessory uses are things that are small. They typically have square footage caps. I believe there is a specific percentage that's listed as a definition in the development code. I could look that up for you if you would like me to. I don't want to say, I'm not sure exactly.
No, that's fine.
But it's things like sometimes childcare or restaurants for those who work in the office building to use while they're there at the office building. So it's things like a small fitness center, like I said, restaurants, miscellaneous services, things like that, that are not primarily offices. They're more services or facilities that would be used not all the time, just primarily by those in the office to help them do their job.
So I guess I was struck by, in studying this a little further since the last meeting, that there's square footage called out for restaurants and places of worship, but not, for example, just reacting to this, a fitness center. Let's use that as the example. How come there's not a square footage articulated for that?
Peter, do you want to come? I'll let the applicant answer.
Sure.
If I recall, Peter Bosher with EHRA, regarding fitness center spa, I think there was a definition of that in the development code that defined the limits of a small fitness center. And so we weren't taking that.
Okay.
We're piggybacking on that definition.
On the development code. So,
Yeah.
so safe to assume that a lot of this is standard for this particular permitted uses for these zoning designations. I was just, again, I'm just kind of reacting to the fact that there were the restaurants and places of worship were called out, but the others were not. So that's good. We don't need to get into a discussion about the development code. Laura, I was just so that, again, I'm welcome at our National Night Out parties. What does other educational services mean?
So other educational services could be things like teaching continuing education classes, adult literacy, sometimes teaching how to use computers, things like that. I believe, so there are some, I believe we classify like a learning beauty technician, like how to cut someone's hair would fall under that.
Could you, let's use a real example. Could I put a Code Ninjas franchise in there?
I'm not sure what that is.
So it's like
a tutor, like an after school tutoring service?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
essentially
that is
like
allowed.
where kids go and learn
That is
how to
where
code.
that would be qualified. Yes, that's where we would categorize that.
Okay, but that has retail, that's heavy retail use, right? Because you're cycling through classes and all that stuff. But that again, just trying to get a grip on the definition. On places of worship, how has that been handled in other development plans? Is it always a part of permitted uses, or because I seem to recall in previous plans there's been some discussion around that. So I'm just curious.
So it's not always included, but we do like to include it because freedom of worship is allowed per the federal laws.
Yeah, of course.
We do sometimes have caps on them if we don't think it's fairly like for an office type building. We have those square footage caps because we do want it to be limited to an ancillary use, which is or accessory use. So that's why there are square footage caps. But we do want to allow it in case someone does want to include that. It can also include more specific prayer rooms for some other religions and things like that.
That makes sense. And then how come it's specific on I'm moving to the restaurant at the bottom. It says 5,000 square foot limit within Reserve A. Why are we calling out Reserve A there? Just out of curiosity.
That'll be most likely due to the size of the building. So the
so this is the whole track, but it's both A and B, and we're just saying that in Reserve
A, the maximum is 5,000. For Reserve B, if the building was larger, the percentage might be a
and that
larger.
would come back to us, and we'd say,
Well, no,
No.
so it would be based on the definition in the development code as
Okay.
accessory use. So that percentage, however big that building is for Reserve B, that's, let's say it's 10%, is the maximum for the code, then there could be a 10% of that building covered by restaurant use. Whether or not that's 5,000 square feet, we don't know because it depends on how big the building will be.
Gotcha.
So this is
And-
limiting it specifically for this building at 48,000 square feet.
So does it limit the restaurants or similar uses that could be in Reserve B by virtue of this call out?
So that call out, it would not limit it. It limits it still to the accessory definition, an accessory use per the development code, but this does more strictly limit it in Reserve A to 5,000.
Gotcha. And then when a building comes back for Reserve B, will it come back before us or not?
It will not. That will just come forward for site plan review,
Site plan review.
which is an administrative process. So still have to follow all of the textual guidelines. There just won't be a specific location in Reserve where the building footprint has been approved by y'all. That will be decided at the site plan phase, whenever that happens.
And I'll stop here. I seem to remember Dan, you probably remember what could only have been a Spring Creek barbecue came before us years ago, envisioned for the other side. If something like that, could they just drop that into Reserve B?
So because it's a restaurant and it's a 100% restaurant, no, it would not be allowed because the restaurant use can only be 10% of the building per the accessory use definition.
Do we want, and Peter, maybe this is a question for you. I mean, do you guys want that restriction on what could drop in B? Or maybe I should ask Jerry.
Yeah, so Jerry's coming.
Yeah.
But just from a staff perspective, this is called out as an office primary use per the general
Okay.
land plan. So to change that would involve changing more than just the FDP.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jerry Olkey with Johnson Development, and just wanted to say, we would love to have additional uses here. Currently, it is zoned for office with just ancillary use, minor uses for retail and restaurant. There may be a time in the future where we may be before you requesting some further modifications, but it's much more extensive than a final development plan. But following what is there today and with the potential buyer that I have, we want to make sure we get him his office, have an opportunity for that second phase office. And so restricting that to the medical office, we're fine with. Should that buyer decide not to proceed with phase two, and should we go through some processes to?
We can always come back is what we're saying.
If at that time, we know that we will come back with a revision to the development plan or just that phase two portion, once some other uses may or may not be approved by then.
Okay. And Laura, I guess, well, never, I won't ask that question. And last question on the restaurants, is there anything permitting, an outdoor use in a restaurant capacity? In other words, if you've got a cafe in there for the office tenants, could they have outdoor space?
So there's nothing prohibiting it, but it would count towards the square footage maximum.
The outdoor space would
Still
toward
count towards the square footage maximum.
Okay. All right, I'll stop. Thanks, Cheryl.
Laura, I just wanted to ask real quick, one of the comments in the last meeting was to get some clarity around the 3 symbol on the elevations, and if you covered this, I apologize, but was that corrected?
It actually was right. So this is an interpretation just to further call. So this is the key here. So this label and number is saying that this is what that material will look like wherever you see the number 3 down here.
Okay, so that's been validated, and so the comment from the last meeting has been addressed from your perspective.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, that's all. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So thanks for putting the information together, but what I'm missing is what the backside of the building looks like. So I think for me, it comes down to understanding the commercial will be there, but it will need to be incorporated into a part of that neighborhood. So the way that the neighborhood was built, I know we're calling this whole water area a retention pond, but it was sold as a water feature. And I think those people understood that there would be commercial there, but is there a way to look at what that building looks like versus just, you know, brick and mortar, right? That it's just bricks. I mean, so it has at least an aesthetic look to it as you look out across the water.
Well,
So it does, I don't really have a view of what it looks like. We understand what the front of the building's going to look like, but what is the back of the building gonna look like?
Yeah,
Because that's what
so-
everybody's really,
so
in the
this is-
neighborhood's gonna see.
Yeah, the front of the building is this right here. So the front facade is what they're going to see across that lake.
Right, but the picture that you provided, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, that's the front. Is that?
Yes, and
so
the
that's
front
the-
is what faces the detention
Ah,
pond.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I thought that's what was facing Highway 6.
Well, plus, let me read out of the text. A couple things. This is on building regulations, on building facades. All building facades shall include offsets, changes in building materials, colors and textures, and architectural detailing that creates shade and casts shadows. And a little bit later, it has all facades of all buildings within the PD shall be of similar architectural design, color, and materials.
Yeah.
and if I
Thanks for the
may,
clarification. I just had it flipped, so thank
yeah,
you for
and
that.
no, and if I may, I just want to say that in the beginning, and when I came on board in 2011, my predecessor, Shay Chafee, many of y'all may have met him. Shay had spent a lot of time with our architectural review committee and our architects to make sure that we embrace the feel of imperial sugar and have everything there. So a lot of our guidelines and part of what we incorporate into the final development plans are following our builder guidelines and our commercial guidelines, which we want to make sure that we don't end up with just a stark brick wall, to your concern. We want to make sure that there's character and further nuances that bring the imperial sugar atmosphere all the way out to Highway 6, so it incorporates across the whole spectrum.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Matt, would you like a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I think I'm ready to read it, and I'll take a second. I will make a motion that we recommend approval of the rezoning of 7.869 acres from Plan Development General Development Plan, ordinance number 1969, to Plan Development Final Development Plan, Imperial Highway 6 District Commercial Tract H, Reserve A and B to the City Council.
I'll
There's a
second.
motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I've got a second by Commissioner Laney. Any other discussion? All right, please vote at this time. I see 5 yea votes. And now 6, that passes unanimously among the members present. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Item 8, reports. A, Planning and Zoning Commission Liaison Report for the March 1, 2022 City Council meeting.
That's me.
Go right ahead.
There was a recognition of the graduates for the Citizens of the Fire Academy, so they were able to do some of this through all of the turmoil with COVID, and so the class of 18 and 19 were given their recognition. There was a consent agenda with a number of items. One item from us was the final development plan for the crossing at Telfair. There was an approval of the Covington Woods drainage improvements contract, so they're moving forward with that. There was the agreement of the development plan for Abbey Lakes, which was basically the 2 agenda items that we had today. Meredith gave a review of the Code of Ordinance and provided a number of housekeeping items for updates. for review for the council. And it was very informative. We had a review of the fire and EMS and police, the fiscal year for 2021. So that was, it was very interesting sitting through those sessions. So, and that was it.
Thanks very much. Item 8B, city staff report.
Just really quickly, your next meeting will be March 24th, Thursday, March 24th. The items we have on there that we've put together so far will be 2 public hearings. One is for a conditional use permit for a storage facility, mini storage type, that is off of 90A and Sugar Park Lane. Requires a CUP and B2 zoning, and it's in that commercial zoning. And that will be for the public hearing, not a decision that night, but public hearing and discussion. And then the other item is for Imperial to the west of former Nalco, the Champion X, on the west side of the Stadium Way. There is going to be a business park, the first of the business park area there that Laura's going to be talking to you about. So we have those 2 items. That's everything we have this evening, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. I will second it. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion passes unanimously. Thanks everyone for your time, for your indulgence for me to appear remotely. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon. We are adjourned.